Hello and welcome, I am Garion Reaver and today I'm going to be reviewing the first episode of an anime I watched recently and loved. Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. I think I'm going to call this series anime style, but I'm not 100% on that yet. Anyway, each episode of this series I'll review an episode of the anime, summarising the plot and talking about my thoughts on it. For the record, I'll be watching the English dub. As I've seen this anime before, I feel I must warn you that I really do like it. I'll try and keep these reviews as balanced and explained as possible, but I'm talking about these as a fan. Also, I apologise if some of the things I talk about are common to anime. I haven't watched many different shows, so I don't really know. So, Episode 1, The Strongest Maid in History, Tohru. And as each episode has a sort of subtitle as well, for this one it's, well, she is a dragon.
It's the best!
As is the first episode, the show gets the characters together and established as quickly as possible. It does this by having a female dragon, Tohru, appearing on the doorstep of a human woman, Kobayashi, as the latter leaves for work. Tohru explains that Kobayashi saved her life the night before, while drunk I might add, and thus is owed a debt. Because of this, Tohru will serve Kobayashi as her live-in maid. Dragons in this world have magical powers, allowing them to hide their natural dragon bodies in the guise of a human, usually with overlarge boobs, but I'll come back to that. While initially very reluctant, Kobayashi is convinced when Tohru uses her flight to get her to work on time. Kobayashi, a maid otaku, and it's never really explained why that is, and apart from a few times she doesn't really act any different because of it, then begins to teach her new maid how to maid. Really, this doesn't serve much purpose beyond outlining some of Tohru's abilities, but it does set up one of the recurring gags of the show, Tohru's tail. Tohru really wants Kobayashi to eat some of her tail. It grows back, so no harm done, but it comes across more like an intimate thing. In this episode it's just another of a sequence of non-sequiturs, but it comes back later. Anyway, the girls talk and Tohru reveals that she is in love with Kobayashi. While Kobayashi expresses concern about being eaten, Tohru responds with a line that I just have to quote. "No, not like that, like sexually." This sets up an interesting dynamic of a sort of unrequited love situation, when Kobayashi replies that she isn't into women or dragons. For the rest of the episode and beyond, this love influences a lot of Tohru's actions, and I'm sure I'll be talking about it more as the series goes on. On another day, at work, Kobayashi is invited out for drinks by her male colleague Takiya. As they leave the office, Tohru is there and assumes Takiya is attempting to seduce Kobayashi, when really he sees her as a confidant and one of the guys. Tohru joins them at a pub and discovers how different Kobayashi becomes when drunk. She and Takiya begin ranting about how Tohru's maid outfit is entirely wrong, revealing Takiya's weird side. Honestly, I find him very strange, but I guess it's a way for this otherwise normal young man to fit in with all the dragons and chaos in this show. His otaku side is one of the over-the-top bits that persist throughout the series. At one point in the rant, Kobayashi demands that Tohru strips. It's just part of the complaint that Tohru isn't dressed properly, and you don't really get any kind of real view of it, so I wouldn't mention it if not for a later scene. Kobayashi says that Tohru should change her clothes, as she isn't in an anime, which is when Tohru reveals that the clothes are in fact her dragon scales, and thus prefers not to remove them. How this works when she removed them like a minute earlier, I don't know, but it leads into probably the most fanservice-y bit of the episode. Tohru wearing personal clothes that Kobayashi bought for her. This is comprised of a skirt and a top that Tohru describes as tight. I don't really know what to say about this. There's plenty of humour sprinkled in, like Kobayashi's jealousy of Tohru's endowment, and Tohru not understanding human things but being blissfully ignorant. Honestly, I don't have that much to say about the fan service in this episode, because this is nothing. Tame even, compared to what comes later. The last real event of note this episode is when Tohru uses her dragon fire abilities to clear the cloudy sky so the washing can dry. Somewhere off in town, a small girl sees the fire and recognises it.
So pretty.
The title sequence for this show is nonsensical but so damn upbeat. From what I've seen, a lot of anime intros and outros don't show as much establishing logic, I'll say, as Western shows. This one in particular plays a fast, happy Japanese song with shots of the characters dancing or just weird stuff. To its credit, it rather captures the feeling of the show, fan service and weirdness, but I found it refreshing. Before this, my favourite anime was Death Note or Gurren Lagann, and while I enjoy them, neither of them are as fun as this one. Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid is now my favourite anime. A lot of effort has gone into giving an insight into the characters' minds. When Asoba Kobayashi first encounters Tohru, you see her mind process all the possible reasons she's seeing a dragon transform into a maid in front of her, and settles on, it's a dream. Later on you get some glimpses of Tohru adjusting to life with humans, like hearing the phrase, hold the fort, and picturing medieval knights defending a castle against a dragon attack. With a premise and setting as bizarre as this one, it usually goes a long way to humanising the characters. A few of them are a bit over the top, but Kobayashi's generally come across as cynical and real, compared to Tohru's fish out of water. Or dragon out of water? No, that doesn't work. Meanwhile, a lot of humour in this show comes from juxtaposition. Two things together that don't quite make sense and are therefore funny. Things like a silhouette of Tohru viciously eating her own tail, only to cut to her standing primly in her maid uniform. I won't list all of the moments in this episode that made me laugh, because really, there are too many. Kobayashi's dry performance meshes beautifully with Tohru's raw enthusiasm, so they're just fun to watch interact. One of my criticisms of this episode is it does go over the top too much for my liking. Things like characters overacting, like waving their arms when they're saying something, or Tohru missing a point by a mile for no reason other than blah. Watching through it again, it could just be the classic pilot issues where creative decisions are tweaked between the first episode and the rest, but a lot of it felt too on the nose for a show with as much subtlety as this one. Giant boobs notwithstanding.
Interesting, I'll remember that.
I decide which anime to watch based on art style and glimpses I get of it on Reddit. Some of the fan service was posted on Reddit, and as I liked the art style, I thought, what the hell? First episodes have a lot of work to do. They have to establish the characters, the setting, the rules, the plot. This one started off with a few core characters and merely teased the others, preferring to focus on Tohru's abilities and motives. When I saw this episode, I immediately went and watched the second. Yeah, I was muttering, this is freaking weird every few minutes, but it never really pushed it too far for me. I think this is a very solid opening for the series, even if it can't decide on which level of the anime acting scale it wishes to sit. I'm looking forward to reviewing the other episodes, and I hope this didn't come across too fanboy-y. Thank you very much for watching. Please consider pledging to my Patreon linked in the description, and I will catch you later.